Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to give you that comprehensive shortcut, making you instantly well-informed on some really dense, really fascinating topics.
And today, well, we're tackling the big ones, the absolute bedrock of Western literature.
That's right. We got your request for a truly detailed breakdown of Homer's two epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. And that's exactly what we're doing. We'll focus hard on the characters, those key events, and just the sheer brilliance of the narrative structures.
Yeah, our mission today is really to immerse you in that Bronze Age world. We want to go beyond just, the plot summaries. We're digging into the core ideas that define these heroes.
We're talking about Achilles' devastating rage that Maenus and, on the other hand, Ulysses' incredible cunning, his mates.
Exactly. The sources we're looking at cover two really distinct phases. First, those final brutal stages of the Trojan War. And second, the chaotic 10-year journey home that came after.
And it's important to note, the sources really present these as two separate sagas. They share characters, sure, but the feel is totally different.
One is all about the quest for glory, Kleos, and, well, the certainty of death. The other, that's about survival, Nostos, homecoming, disguise, and that long, hard road to putting things back together.
So let's start where it all begins, with that immediate, visceral conflict that really sets the stage for a decade of war and suffering. We'll begin with part one, the Iliad, the Rage of Achilles.
Right, the Iliad. It's interesting because its scope is actually quite narrow. It doesn't try to cover all 10 years of the war.
No, it's just about, 50 days or so? Right near the end.
Exactly. But everything that happens in that short time, the battles, the losses, the gods messing around it, all stems from this one massive blow-up between two key Achaeans.
Agamemnon, the commander-in-chief, and Achilles, their greatest warrior by far. Hashtag tag A, the core conflict and key players.
Yeah.
Books 1 to 6.
Okay, let's unpack that opening because it really does lay the groundwork immediately. Themes of honor, hubris. It's all there. It starts in book 1, and interestingly, not with a battle, but a diplomatic disaster, really. Yeah, Chryses, this priest of Apollo, shows up. He's offering a huge ransom for his daughter Chryses, who's been captured.
And Agamemnon, his response is just, wow. Arrogant doesn't even begin to cover it. He flat out refuses the ransom, dismisses the priest really harshly, tells him to get lost, basically.
And that refusal, it's not just impolite, it's deeply impious. It tears at the very fabric of their world, their relationship with the gods, and the consequences are immediate.
You see Apollo descending, furious from the summits of Olympus. The description is incredible, the arrows rattling on his back. It's the sound of death.
And he sends this plague down on the Achaean army. So Agamemnon's personal arrogance effectively brings the entire war effort to a grinding halt.
So 9 days of this plague pass. The Achaeans are desperate. They consult Calchas, who's known as the wisest augur, the best seer they have.
Calchas reveals the cause. It's Agamemnon's fault. He has to give Chryses back to stop the plague.
Agamemnon eventually concedes he has to, but his pride is so wounded, he refuses to lose face, his Tiame, his honor, so he retaliates.
And who does he retaliate against? Achilles, the very man who pushed for Calchas to speak out. Agamemnon seizes Achilles' own prize, the captive woman Briseis.
And it's crucial to understand this isn't really about Briseis herself, is it? It's about status. It's a public humiliation, stripping Achilles of his earned honor.
Precisely. That's the tragic flaw, the act of hubris that ignites the whole epic. Achilles' reaction is pure, destructive fury. He calls Agamemnon a mean coward, a glutton for plunder.
And he makes this solemn vow. He will not fight again. Not until the Achaeans are desperate, pushed back to their ships, begging him for help. His withdrawal just shatters the Achaean military might.
It forces the gods, who are always meddling anyway, to really take sides now. The whole conflict escalates.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Achilles is right there. He's the greatest warrior. Why doesn't he just kill Agamemnon on the spot? The sources say he actually draws his sword.
He does. But then, whoosh, divine intervention. Minerva, that's Athena, comes down from Olympus, sent by Juno, Hera. She physically grabs his hair, stops him.
And tells him what?
Tells him to use words instead. Insult Agamemnon, vent his rage that way. She promises him his compensation will eventually be 3 times greater if he holds back now.
Achilles obeys her, which is significant, showing his piety, even in rage. But his immediate action is political withdrawal. He pulls himself and his men out, putting the whole Achaean cause in serious jeopardy.
And then the divine politics really kick into high gear. Achilles goes to his mother, the sea goddess Thetis.
Right, and she takes his case straight to the top, to Zeus himself. She reminds Zeus of this old debt.
A very specific debt. How she saved Zeus once when Hera, Poseidon, and Athena tried to overthrow him. She called up the hundred-handed giant, Briareus, also called Aegon, to rescue him.
So it's basically divine blackmail. She's calling it a marker.
Pretty much. And Zeus, feeling obligated, reluctantly agrees to help the Trojans, but only temporarily.
It's a complex plan, isn't it? Let the Trojans win for a while, make Agamemnon suffer, make him realize just how much he needs Achilles.
Exactly. Zeus's decision right there in Book 1 seals the fate of countless Achaean soldiers. The tragedy unfolds from this point.
So moving into books 2, 3, and 4, we see the immediate consequences. The setup for battle starts with, well, more divine meddling.
Zeus sends a false dream to Agamemnon. It comes in the likeness of Nestor, the wise old counselor, telling Agamemnon to attack Troy immediately, saying he'll capture the city.
Agamemnon buys it, but then he does something incredibly foolish. He decides to test his army's morale by suggesting they all just pack up and go home.
Which almost backfires completely. The troops start running for the ships. It takes Ulysses Odysseus stepping in, using his authority and rhetoric to restore order and get them ready to fight.
Then in Book 3, there's this moment, this glimmer of hope for peace.
Right, the duel. Menelaus, Agamemnon's brother, whose wife Helen was taken by Paris, agrees to fight Paris, who's also called Alexandrus, one-on-one. The idea is winner takes all, settle the whole war right there.
King Priam of Troy even comes out to swear the oaths, make it official before the gods.
And Menelaus clearly wins. He's dragging Paris away by his helmet strap. It looks like it's over.
But then, another divine intervention.
Venus Aphrodite, who favors Paris, whisks him away in a cloud of mist, just spirits him right off the battlefield and back into his bedroom in Troy.
Which leads to that fantastic scene where Helen just lays into him, calls him a coward, wishes he died out there. You really feel her frustration and the ruin he's caused.
Absolutely. But the damage is done militarily, too. The truce is broken. And in Book 4, it gets broken officially and treacherously.
Minerva and Juno Athena and Hera, they really want Troy destroyed, so they persuade a Trojan ally, Pandarus, to break the oath.
He fires an arrow, specifically targeting Menelaus. It just grazes his skin, draws blood, but that's enough.
The truce is shattered, the oath sworn before the gods is violated. Now the war will continue, and the Achaeans feel they have the moral high ground for vengeance.
And the battle erupts. This is where we often see the Aristeia, these extended moments where individual heroes just dominate the battlefield, often with divine help.
And the sources really put the spotlight on Diomedes in books 5 and 6. Minerva basically supercharges him. His armor is described as burning with fire. He's unstoppable for a while.
He's so empowered, he actually starts attacking the gods themselves. He wounds Venus when she tries to save her son, Aeneas.
She flees to Olympus, crying to Zeus, who basically tells her, stick to marriage duties, war isn't your thing. It's almost comical.
But Diomedes isn't finished. He then goes after Mars Ares, the god of war himself who's fighting alongside the Trojans. With Minerva guiding his spear, he wounds Mars.
Mars runs screaming back to Olympus, complaining to Zeus about these mortals and Athena's interference.
And Zeus's response is classic. He calls Mars surfacing both ways, acknowledges his stubborn, hateful nature inherited from Hera, but heals him anyway. It shows just how chaotic things are. Diomedes is temporarily operating on a near-divine level.
And it really highlights the vacuum left by Achilles' absence.
Definitely. But amidst all this fighting, you get these moments of profound humanity. Like in Book 6, when Diomedes confronts Glaucus, a Trojan ally.
Right, before they fight, they do the formal introductions, tracing their lineage. And they realize
their grandfathers were guest friends, bound by Xenia, the sacred laws of hospitality.
So even in the middle of this brutal war, they recognize this ancient bond. They agree not to fight each other.
And they exchange armor as a sign of respect. It's a powerful moment showing that some values transcend even war.
Although Glaucus kind of gets the short end of the stick there, doesn't he?
Yes, the source makes a point of saying Zeus must have addled his wits. He trades his solid gold armor, worth 100 oxen, for Diomedes' bronze armor, worth only 9. A moment of honor, but maybe not the best deal.
And then, arguably the most moving part of the entire Iliad also happens in Book 6. Hector, the greatest Trojan hero, returns to the city.
And he has that incredibly poignant conversation with his wife Andromache and their little son, Astyanax.
Andromache begs him not to go back out there, to fight from the safety of the walls. She fears the inevitable.
But Hector feels he can't. His honor, his duty to Troy, compels him to fight at the front. He acknowledges his fear for her future if Troy falls, but he also accepts his own fate.
He says that line, "No one can hurry me down to Hades before my time." He knows he's likely doomed, but chooses duty and reputation over safety.
He really embodies the ideal human hero in many ways, brave, loyal, pious, but trapped in this conflict, largely driven by the gods and the pride of others. Hashtag tag tag B, the turning tide and the withdrawal of Achilles. Book 7:15.
Okay, so after these initial clashes and Hector's return to the field, the tide starts to turn against the Achaeans, especially without Achilles.
Right. In Book 7, the fighting is fierce. Ajax, the big Achaean warrior, fates Hector in single combat. It's a brutal draw, basically fought until nightfall stops them.
And they actually exchange gifts out of mutual respect afterwards. Ajax gives Hector a shield strap, Hector gives Ajax a sword. Kind of ironic considering their later fates.
It is. And crucially, in Book 7, wise old Nestor advises the Achaeans, look, we're exposed here. He tells them to build a defensive wall and a trench around their ships.
This is a big shift, isn't it? Moving from offense to defense. It shows their growing vulnerability and maybe even fear.
Absolutely. And that fear is justified in Book 8. Zeus makes his move, fulfilling that promise to Thetis. He thunders from Mount Ida, visibly tilting the scales of battle in favor of the Trojans.
The Achaeans are driven back in panic toward their new wall. Hector is on fire, completely dominant.
He pushes them right back to the ships, boasting he'll burn the fleet the very next day. The situation looks desperate for the Achaeans. They are now directly suffering the consequences of Agamemnon insulting Achilles.
Which forces Agamemnon's hand. This leads to that critical moment in Book 9, the embassy to Achilles.
Agamemnon is broken. He actually proposes they just give up and sail home.
But Diomedes furiously shouts him down, tells him he can leave if he wants, but the rest of them will stay and fight until Troy falls.
So Agamemnon realizes he has no choice. He has to swallow his pride. He has to try and get Achilles back. And he puts together this massive offer of compensation.
It's truly staggering. He offers to return Briseis, swearing an oath he never touched her. Plus, 7 prosperous cities, tons of gold, bronze cauldrons, prize-winning horses.
And marriage to one of his own daughters, Chrysothemis, Laodice, or Iphianassa, with a huge dowry, no bride price needed. It's an unprecedented package designed specifically to restore Achilles' loss to Ammon.
And yet, Achilles says no. Flat out refuses everything.
His response is incredibly powerful and incredibly bitter. He says he hates Agamemnon like the gates of Hades. He compares him to a dog, a hound. He says he's sailing home to Phthia the next morning.
But why? The offer was immense. It addressed the initial insult directly.
Because for Achilles, the wound is deeper than material goods or even the woman herself. It's about trust and the very meaning of honor. If Agamemnon can take away his prize with impunity and then try to buy him back, what does honor even mean?
He feels the whole system is broken.
Exactly. He questions the whole point of fighting for glory, Cleos, if it leads to this. He explicitly contrasts the short, glorious life fate has given him with the long, peaceful life he could have had back home. He sees Agamemnon's offer as just, transactional, a way to manage his rage, not a genuine apology or restoration of respect.
The embassy tries everything. His old tutor, Phoenix, tells this long, cautionary story about another hero, Meleager, whose stubborn anger almost destroyed his city until he finally relented.
But Achilles twists the lesson. He basically says, see, you should come home with me, Phoenix. Don't stay here and suffer. His rage has become this all-consuming force. He's isolated himself.
So the war grinds on without him. The Achaeans are desperately trying to hold their wall. Book 10 gives us a bit of a break from the main battle, though.
Yeah, the Delonia, the night raid. Ulysses and Diomedes volunteer for a spying mission.
They capture a Trojan spy, Dolon, get information from him, and then kill him. Pretty brutal.
And then they sneak into the camp of the Thracians, allies of Troy, kill their king, Rhesus, and steal his famous, magnificent white horses. It's a successful mission, boosts morale a bit, gets some intel.
But the main battles resume, and the gods get even more involved. The drama really ramps up in Book 14.
Oh, yeah. Juno decides she's had enough of Zeus helping the Trojans. She hatches this elaborate plan to, distract him.
Distract him how?
Seduction. She borrows Venus's magic girdle, the Kestos Hymas, which makes her irresistible. Then she bribes Sleep, the personification of Sleep, who happens to be Death's brother, to help her.
She seduces Zeus on Mount Ida, and then Sleep puts him under, knocks him out cold.
It's quite the scene, and with Zeus temporarily out of commission, Juno's ally, Neptune Poseidon, who hates the Trojans, immediately jumps into the fray.
He rallies the Achaeans, and they start pushing the Trojans back again. The tide turns briefly.
But only briefly, because in Book 15, Zeus wakes up, and he is furious. He sees the Trojans retreating, sees Neptune interfering.
He puts a stop to it fast. Sends Iris, the messenger goddess, to order Neptune off the battlefield. Neptune complains, but obeys.
Then Zeus sends Apollo down to recharge Hector. Apollo breathes strength back into him, gives him almost supernatural power.
And Hector leads the Trojans in this mass counterattack. They smash through the Achaean wall, break down the gates. The Achaeans are routed, fleeing back towards the ships again.
It's absolute chaos. The Trojans are right at the ships, starting to set them on fire. This is the lowest point for the Achaeans. The entire expedition is on the verge of annihilation. Everything now hinges on one person. ##C, the death of Patroclus and the resolution. Book 1624.
And that brings us to Book 16, and the pivotal role of Patroclus. He's Achilles' closest friend, his therapeutic companion.
And he can't stand watching the Achaeans suffer anymore. He goes to Achilles, weeping, begging him to rejoin the fight, or at the very least to let him, Patroclus, wear Achilles' famous armor.
The idea being that the armor itself would scare the Trojans, make them think Achilles had returned.
Achilles agrees, but he gives Patroclus a very strict warning. A classic Homeric setup for tragedy, he says. Drive the Trojans away from the ships, secure the camp, but do not pursue them toward the city of Troy.
Just push them back, then stop.
Exactly. But Patroclus, well, he gets caught up in the moment. He puts on the armor, leads Achilles' men, the Myrmidons, into battle, and he is devastating.
He drives the Trojans back from the ships, just as planned, but then
He gets that taste of glory. The Aristeia takes hold. He forgets Achilles' warning entirely and pursues the fleeing Trojans across the plain.
during this charge, he kills Sarpedon, a major Trojan ally, leader of the Lycians. And Sarpedon happens to be a son of Zeus.
Right. Zeus watches his son die. He considers saving him, but Hera reminds him of the rules, basically. So Zeus accepts it, but he honors Sarpedon.
There's that beautiful moving scene where Zeus sends Apollo down to retrieve Sarpedon's body from the battlefield.
Apollo cleanses the body, anoints it, and then gives it to the twin brothers, Sleep, Hypnos, and Death, Genitos, to carry back to Lycia for proper burial. It shows that even enemies deserve respect in death.
But Patroclus keeps going, driving towards the walls of Troy itself. This is where his fate is sealed.
Apollo intervenes directly. He strikes Patroclus, dazing him and knocking off Achilles' helmet. Then a lesser Trojan warrior, Euphorbus, spears him.
And finally, Hector steps in and delivers the killing blow.
But as Patroclus is dying, he manages one last prophecy. He tells Hector that his own death is coming soon, at the hands of Achilles.
Hector, defiant, strips Achilles' armor off Patroclus' body, a hugely symbolic act, claiming the spoils. But this act, more than anything, guarantees Achilles' return to the war.
Because the news reaches Achilles in Book 18 and it utterly breaks him, the grief is immense, described in harrowing detail. His rage against Agamemnon is instantly replaced by an even greater, consuming rage against Hector.
His mother, Thetis, comes to mourn with him. But Achilles is now resolute. He knows returning to battle means his own death will follow soon. His fate is tied to Hector's, but he doesn't care. Vengeance is all that matters.
But he needs armor. His old set, the divine gift, is now worn by Hector, so Thetis goes to the divine smith, Vulcan Hephaestus.
And Vulcan, owing Thetis a favor too, forges new armor for Achilles.
Yeah.
And this includes the incredible shield of Achilles.
We really need to pause on the shield. It's not just armor. It's like a poem within the poem, a masterpiece of description.
It depicts two cities, one at peace, weddings, markets, legal disputes, the other at war, sieges, ambushes, battles.
It shows scenes of farming, harvest, vineyards, dancing, the cosmos, sun, moon, stars. It's a microcosm of the entire world, of civilization, order, and chaos, all forged onto this shield Achilles will use for brutal vengeance.
The contrast is stunning. It's like Vulcan is showing everything Achilles is about to leave behind, everything war destroys.
And when Achilles returns to battle in books 20 through 22, he is terrifying. He's almost inhuman. It's not strategic fighting anymore. It's pure slaughter.
He charges into the Trojan ranks, cutting down everyone in his path. He even drives them into the river Scamander, also called Xanthus.
He fills the river with corpses and blood until the river god himself rises up in anger, complaining that Achilles is choking his waters.
And Achilles, in his godlike fury, actually fights the river god.
Until Vulcan has to intervene again, this time using fire to push the river back, saving Achilles. It's this incredible image of the hero battling not just men, but the very forces of nature.
Even his own immortal horse, Xanthus, is briefly given the power of speech by the gods to warn Achilles that his death is near.
Achilles acknowledges it. He knows his fate. But he vows he won't stop until he's had his fill of killing Trojans.
And it all leads to the climax, the duel everyone has been waiting for in Book 22. Achilles versus Hector.
Hector makes the choice to wait outside the Scaean gates of Troy. His parents, Priam and Hecuba, plead with him from the walls to come inside, but he refuses. Honor demands he face Achilles.
What follows is that harrowing chase. Achilles pursues Hector 3 times around the entire city of Troy.
It's a moment of pure terror and suspense. Finally, divine trickery ends it. Minerva appears to Hector, disguised as his favorite brother, Deiphobus.
She convinces Hector that they can face Achilles together, so Hector stops, turns, ready to fight. But then Deiphobus vanishes.
He realizes he's been tricked by the gods, that his doom is here. He fights bravely, but Achilles knows the weak spot in his old armor that Hector is now wearing.
Achilles drives his spear through Hector's throat.
And then comes the ultimate act of desecration, fueled by his grief for Patroclus. Achilles refuses Hector's dying plea for his body to be returned for burial.
Instead, he pierces Hector's ankles, ties him to his chariot, and drags the body in the dust around the walls of Troy and back to the Achaean camp, right past Patroclus's tomb. It's horrifying, a violation of all custom, human and divine.
But the Iliad doesn't end there, with that peak of rage. Books 23 and 24 provide a necessary resolution, a return towards humanity.
Book 23 is dedicated to the funeral games for Patroclus. Chariot races, boxing, wrestling, foot races.
It's a way to channel grief and aggression into ritual competition, restoring some sense of order among the Achaeans after the chaos. There are arguments over prizes, displays of skill, like Epeius winning the boxing match. It feels like a step back towards normalcy.
And then the final, truly transcendent movement comes in Book 24. The gods decide Hector's body has been desecrated long enough.
Zeus sends Thetis to tell Achilles he must release the body. Apollo has been protecting it from decay and dogs, by the way. Then Zeus sends Iris to King Priam, telling him to go to Achilles with ransom.
Priam, guided by Mercury Hermes, makes this incredibly brave, secret journey right into the heart of the enemy camp, carrying a huge ransom.
And he finds Achilles. And this scene, it's one of the most powerful in all literature. Priam kneels, clasps Achilles' knees, kisses the very hands that killed his sons.
And he appeals to Achilles, not as a warrior, but as a son. He says, "Remember your own father, Peleus, who is old and waiting, fearing for his son, just like Priam."
And it works. Achilles' grief finally finds an echo in Priam's. The rage breaks. They weep together, Achilles for Patroclus and his father, Priam for Hector. Shared humanity overcomes the enmity of war.
Achilles accepts the ransom, returns Hector's body. He even grants Priam a truce, usually 12 days, for the funeral rites.
Priam returns to Troy with his son's body. Andromache, Hecuba, and even Helen lead the lamentations. Helen's words are particularly moving. She notes Hector was always kind to her, unlike others in Troy.
The epic ends not with the fall of Troy, but with the funeral of Hector. He's burned on a pyre, his bones gathered and buried. The final line focuses on the burial of Hector, breaker of horses.
It's a story that starts with rage over honor and ends with shared grief and the proper honoring of the dead, even an enemy. A profound arc.
Okay, let's completely shift gears now. From the battlefield outside Troy, the focus changes dramatically. We move from Achilles' singular destructive rage to the 10 long years of cunning, endurance, and disguise that mark the journey of Ulysses.
Yeah, from war and the pursuit of Creos, glory, to the desperate winding path towards homecoming, Nostos. Part 2. The Odyssey, the wanderings of Ulysses.
The Odyssey gives us a very different kind of hero, facing very different challenges.
Absolutely. Ulysses, or Odysseus in the Greek, survives primarily through his metis, his intelligence, his trickery, his ability to endure. Achilles used force, bio. Ulysses uses his wits.
And his enemies aren't just soldiers on a battlefield. He's up against monsters, angry gods, witches, and maybe worst of all, corruption back home. #Gingdi, the home front, and Telemachus' quest, books 1 to 4.
The poem cleverly doesn't start with Ulysses himself. It opens back in Ithaca, his home, setting up the crisis there in Book 1.
And the situation is bad. Ulysses himself is stranded, held captive on the island Ogygia by the nymph Calypso. She's madly in love with him and won't let him leave.
But the bigger obstacle, the source tells us, is divine. It's Neptune Poseidon. He bears this massive grudge against Ulysses.
Why? Because Ulysses blinded his son, the Cyclops Polyphemus. Neptune's anger is like this cosmic storm constantly blocking Ulysses' return path.
Meanwhile, back in Ithaca, the palace is overrun. These arrogant young nobles, the suitors, have basically moved in.
The main ones are Antinous, who's just cruel and violent, and Eurymachus, who's more smooth-talking and deceitful.
And they're consuming Ulysses' entire estate, eating his food, drinking his wine, slaughtering his livestock, all under the pretense of courting his wife, Penelope.
It's a total violation of Xenia, the guest-host relationship. They are parasites destroying the kingdom from within.
And Penelope, she's holding them off with her own form of matus, her famous trick with the shroud.
Right. She tells the suitors she can't possibly remarry until she finishes weaving a funeral shroud for Ulysses' elderly father, Laertes.
So she weaves this intricate tapestry all day. But every night, secretly, she unpicks everything she wove. She keeps this up for 3 years.
It shows her intelligence, her patience, her loyalty. She's very much her husband's match in cunning.
While this is happening, Minerva Athena, Ulysses' constant protector, decides it's time to intervene. Still in Book 1, she appears disguised as an old family friend, Mentes.
And who does she visit?
Ulysses' son, Telemachus. He's grown up without his father, maybe early 20s now, but he's passive, overwhelmed by the suitors. He hasn't really claimed his authority.
Nerva's goal is to basically light a fire under him, encourage him to grow up, assert himself, and go seek news of his father. It's the start of his own journey, his own mini-odyssey.
Inspired, Telemachus calls an assembly in Book 2. It's the first one held since Ulysses left nearly 20 years before. He tries to denounce the suitors, tell them to leave.
How does that go over?
Predictably badly. The suitors, especially Antinous, mock him. Antinous actually has the gall to blame Penelope and her shroud trick for the whole situation, diverting blame from their own appalling behavior.
But Telemachus holds firm, at least enough to state his intention. He's going to sail away, seek news of his father. He secretly gets a ship and crew, with Minerva's help, of course.
His first stop in Book 3 is Pylos, the kingdom of old King Nestor, who fought alongside Ulysses at Troy.
Nestor is wise, hospitable, but doesn't have direct news of Ulysses. What he does provide is context. He tells Telemachus about the returns, the nostoi of the other Achaean heroes. Many were difficult, some fatal.
And Nestor specifically recounts the story of Agamemnon's return, how he was murdered by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus, and then how Agamemnon's son, Orestes, eventually came back and took vengeance.
This Orestes story is crucial, isn't it? It's held up as a model for Telemachus, a son's duty to avenge or restore his father's house.
Exactly. It puts pressure on Telemachus, but also gives him a heroic example to aspire to.
From Pylos, Telemachus travels overland to Sparta, to the palace of Menelaus and Helen in Book 4. They are back together, ruling in splendor, though haunted by the past.
And Menelaus does have news. He tells Telemachus about his own difficult return journey, including being stranded in Egypt.
And how he had to capture Proteus, the old man of the sea.
Right, Proteus, this shape-shifting sea god. Menelaus had to wrestle him and hold on through all his transformations, lion, serpent, water, fire, until Proteus finally gave up and answered his questions.
And what did Proteus reveal about Ulysses?
He confirmed Ulysses was alive, but held captive by Calypso on her island of Gygia. Alive. It's the first real confirmation Telemachus has received. Huge news.
But while Telemachus is getting this vital information, the danger back home escalates sharply, also in Book 4.
The suitors find out Telemachus actually managed to get a ship and sail away. They are furious and, frankly, scared. What if he comes back with allies or with news that Ulysses is returning?
So they plot to ambush him. They plan to lay in wait in the narrow strait between Ithaca and the island of Samos and kill him as his ship sails through on his way back.
The stakes are now life and death for Telemachus, too. The suitors are moving from greedy parasites to potential murderers. ##E, Ulysses' long return, and Phaeacian hospitality. Books 5-13.
Okay, so the focus finally shifts directly to Ulysses himself in Book 5. Where do we find him?
Still stuck on Ogygia with Calypso. 7 long years he's been there. The gods on Olympus finally decide it's time for him to go home well, all except Neptune.
Zeus sends Mercury Hermes, the messenger god, flying down to Calypso's island with the order. Let him go.
Calypso is heartbroken. She loves Ulysses, even offered him immortality if he'd stay and be her husband. But she can't defy a direct order from Zeus.
So reluctantly, she helps Ulysses build a raft, gives him provisions, points him in the right direction. He finally sets sail.
But just as Ithaca is almost in sight, Neptune spots him. The god is returning from a trip and sees Ulysses on the waves. He is enraged.
And he unleashes a massive storm, smashing the raft to pieces. Ulysses is thrown into the churning sea.
He's close to drowning, battered and exhausted, clinging to a piece of wreckage. Just when all seems lost, another divinity intervenes.
This time it's Ino, also called Leucothea, a minor sea goddess who takes pity on him.
She gives him her veil, tells him it's enchanted, and will keep him afloat if he abandons the wreckage and swims for it. He has to trust her.
He does, eventually. After 2 days of swimming, battered and near death, he finally washes ashore on the island of Scheria, land of the Phaeacians. Neptune's power doesn't quite reach here.
And this is where books 6 through 8 unfold. He's found, naked and covered in brine, by the young princess Nausicaa.
Minerva orchestrated that meeting, of course. Put the idea in Nausicaa's head to go down to the river mouth to wash clothes, right where Ulysses would wash up.
Ulysses handles the encounter brilliantly. He doesn't rush out, which would scare her and her maids. He stays hidden, then uses his famous rhetorical skill, his metis, to supplicate her respectfully from a distance.
She shows compassion, gives him clothes, food, and crucial advice. When you get to the palace, appeal directly to my mother, Queen Arete. If you win her favor, you're guaranteed help.
So Ulysses makes his way to the palace in Book 7. It's described as almost magical, aided by Minerva in disguise. He walks right into the Great Hall, past King Alcinous, and throws himself at the knees of Queen Arete.
Just as Nausicaa advised. Smart move.
Very. Arete is sharp. She immediately recognizes the clothes he's wearing as ones she herself wove for Nausicaa. She questions him directly.
Ulysses tells a partial story, enough to explain his situation without revealing his full identity just yet. The Phaeacians, who are known for their incredible ships and their hospitality to strangers, promise him safe passage home.
Book 8 gives us a glimpse into Phaeacian culture. They hold feasts and athletic games in Ulysses' honor.
There's that moment where one young Phaeacian noble insults Ulysses, suggests he looks more like a merchant than a warrior or athlete.
Bad move. Ulysses, though weary, picks up a massive discus, heavier than any the Phaeacians were using, and hurls it way beyond all their marks. Proves his strength, shuts the guy up.
Then comes the really pivotal moment. The blind court bard, Demodocus, sings.
First, he sings about a quarrel between Ulysses and Achilles at Troy. Then later, he sings the famous story of the Trojan horse Ulysses' own masterstroke strategy that won the war.
And Ulysses, hearing these tales of his own past glory and suffering, can't help himself. He starts weeping uncontrollably.
King Alcinous notices this profound reaction. He stops the singing and finally asks the crucial questions. Who are you really? What is your story? Why do you weep when you hear of Troy?
And this prompts Ulysses to finally reveal his identity and tell his whole story. This begins the great flashback narrative that takes up the next several books.
Right. Books 9 through 12 are Ulysses narrating his adventures since leaving Troy 10 years earlier. It's his story, told to the Phaeacians.
He starts with the Cicons right after Troy. His men sack the city, but then linger too long against his orders, celebrating and feasting. The surviving Cicons regroup, attack, and drive them off with heavy losses. An early lesson in discipline, or lack thereof.
Then the Lotus Eaters, whose magical plant makes you forget your home and desire to stay forever. Ulysses has to drag some of his men back to the ships by force.
Next, the most famous encounter, perhaps. The Cyclops Polyphemus, in Book 9 still.
Oh, yes. They get trapped in his cave. He starts eating Ulysses' men 2 at a time. Ulysses has to use his middies to survive.
The nobody trick, telling the Cyclops his name is Audis, which sounds like nobody in Greek.
Exactly. Then he gets the giant drunk on potent wine, and while he sleeps, Ulysses and his remaining men drive a sharpened, fire-hardened aula stake into the Cyclops' single eye, blinding him.
When the other Cyclops hear Polyphemus screaming and ask who's hurting him, he yells, "Nobody is hurting me," so they think he's just mad or cursed by the gods, and leave.
Brilliant escape plan. They sneak out of the cave the next morning by clinging to the bellies of Polyphemus' sheep as he lets them out to pasture.
But then Ulysses makes a crucial mistake. As they sail away, safe, he can't resist yelling back his real name in triumph, boasting about who blinded Polyphemus.
Huge mistake. Hubris. Polyphemus, now knowing his attacker's name, prays to his father, Neptune, asking him to curse Ulysses to make sure he never reaches home, or if he does, to arrive late, alone, in distress, and find trouble in his house.
And Neptune hears that prayer. That's the root of the god's relentless anger.
After the Cyclops, they reach the island of Aeolus, the keeper of the winds, in Book 10. Aeolus is hospitable, gives Ulysses a parting gift, a sealed bag containing all the storm winds. Only the gentle west wind is left out, to blow them straight home to Ithaca.
They sail for 9 days. Ithaca is in sight. Ulysses, exhausted, finally falls asleep.
And his men get suspicious. They think the bag must be full of gold and silver that Ulysses is hiding from them, so they open it.
Disaster. All the storm winds rush out, blowing them all the way back to Aeolus' island. Aeolus is furious, realizes they must be cursed by the gods, and refuses to help them again. Mutiny and greed cost them their homecoming.
Next, the terrifying Laestrygonians, a race of giant cannibals.
They attack Ulysses' fleet as it's moored in their harbor, smashing the ships with huge boulders and spearing the men like fish. Only Ulysses' own ship, which he had cautiously moored outside the main harbor, escapes. 11 ships lost. Devastating.
From there, the single surviving ship reaches Aeaea, the island of the sorceress Circe, also in Book 10.
Circe seems welcoming at first, but she drugs a scouting party of Ulysses' men and turns them into pigs with her magic wand.
One man escapes to warn Ulysses. As Ulysses goes to confront Circe, he's met by Hermes Mercury again, who gives him a magical herb, moly, to protect him from Circe's magic.
Protected by Moly, Ulysses resists her spell, draws his sword, and forces Circe to swear an oath not to harm him or his men and to turn his men back into humans.
She does, and then, perhaps surprisingly, they end up staying with Circe for a full year, feasting and recovering. Circe becomes a valuable advisor.
Until his men finally remind Ulysses, hey, shouldn't we be trying to get home?
Right. Circe agrees to let them go, but tells Ulysses he must undertake one more perilous journey first. He has to travel to the underworld, the land of the dead.
Why?
To consult the ghost of the blind Theban prophet Tiresias. Only Tiresias can tell him definitively how to get home and what awaits him there.
So Book 11 is the Nicaea, the journey to Hades. Ulysses performs the prescribed rituals, digs a pit, makes offerings, sacrifices sheep. The ghosts of the dead flock towards the blood.
He has to hold them off with his sword until Tiresias arrives. Tiresias drinks the blood and gives his prophecy.
What's the core message?
He confirms Ulysses will eventually get home, but warns him emphatically, whatever you do, do not harm the sacred cattle of the sun god Helios on the island of Thrinacia. If you or your men harm those cattle, your ship and crew will be destroyed, and you'll return home late, alone, and find trouble.
Tiresias also foretells the suitors and the need for vengeance. After Tiresias, Ulysses speaks with other ghosts.
He sees his mother, Anticlea. He didn't even know she had died. She tells him she died of grief, longing for his return. She also updates him on Penelope's faithfulness and Telemachus' situation and his father Laertes' decline. It's a heartbreaking reunion.
Then he speaks with the shades of the fallen heroes from Troy. Agamemnon first.
Agamemnon tells the bitter story of his own murder by Clytemnestra and Aegisthus, and he gives Ulysses that stark warning. Never trust a woman too much. Don't tell Penelope everything when you get back. Test her first. This shapes Ulysses' cautious approach later.
Then he speaks with Achilles. Ulysses tries to cheer him up, saying how honored he must be, even as king of the dead.
And Achilles delivers that devastating line. Don't try to console me about death, glorious Ulysses. I'd rather be a slave on earth for some poor farmer than rule over all these dead. It's the ultimate rejection of the heroic code of Kleos celebrated in the Iliad, and a powerful affirmation of life and Gnostos.
He sees Ajax, too, who still refuses to speak to him, still angry about losing the contest for Achilles' armor back at Troy. He sees figures from myth like Minos, Orion, Tantalus, Sisyphus, a whole panorama of the afterlife.
After the underworld, Ulysses returns to Circe's island briefly. She gives him detailed warnings about the final dangers ahead in Book 12.
First, the sirens. Their song lures sailors to wreck their ships on the rocks.
Circe advises Ulysses to plug his men's ears with beeswax. But if Ulysses himself wants to hear the song, he must have his men tie him securely to the mast and order them not to release him no matter how much he begs.
Which he does. He hears their beautiful, tempting song promising knowledge, but survives.
Next, the terrifying passage between two monsters, Scylla and Charybdis.
Scylla is a six-headed monster living in a cliff cave who snatches sailors off the decks of passing ships. Charybdis is a whirlpool on the other side that sucks down entire ships 3 times a day.
Circe advises him it's better to lose 6 men to Scylla than the whole ship to Charybdis. A horrible choice.
Ulysses tries to fight Scylla, but as Circe warned, it's useless. While he's distracted by Charybdis, Scylla snakes down her 6 heads and snatches 6 of his best men right off the deck.
Ulysses describes their screams, reaching for him as they're lifted into the air, as the most pitiful thing he saw on his entire journey. A moment of true horror and helplessness.
Finally, they reach Thrinacia, the island of the sun god, Helios. Ulysses remembers Tiresias and Circe's warnings and makes his men swear a solemn oath not to touch the sacred cattle or sheep grazing there.
But they get stranded on the island for a month by unfavorable winds. Their provisions run out. They're starving.
While Ulysses is inland, praying, perhaps asleep, his second-in-command, Eurylochus, persuades the crew to break their oath. He argues it's better to die quickly by the god's wrath than slowly by starvation.
They round up the best of the sun god's cattle, sacrifice them improperly, and feast for 6 days.
Helios is furious, complains to Zeus, threatens to take the sun down to shine in the underworld if vengeance isn't done.
Zeus agrees. As soon as Ulysses' ship sets sail again, Zeus hits it with a thunderbolt. The ship disintegrates. All the men are thrown into the sea and drown, punishment for their impiety.
Only Ulysses survives, clinging to the ship's mast and keel, lashed together. He gets swept back towards Charybdis, barely survives by grabbing onto a fig tree overhanging the whirlpool.
He drifts for 9 days, finally washing ashore on Ogygia, Calypso's island.
Which brings his flashback narrative full circle. He's told the Phaeacians everything up to the point where he washed ashore on their island.
The Phaeacians are deeply moved by his story. In Book 13, they load him onto one of their magically swift ships, piled high with treasures more than he won at Troy, and set sail for Ithaca while Ulysses sleeps soundly, exhausted.
They deliver him, still sleeping, onto a beach in Ithaca, leave the treasure beside him, and sail away.
But Neptune sees the ship returning. He's angry that the Phaeacians constantly help travelers escape his wrath. He complains to Zeus.
Zeus allows Neptune to punish them. As the Phaeacian ship is sailing back into its own harbor, Neptune turns it into stone, rooting it to the seabed just offshore.
King Alcinous sees this happen, remembers an old prophecy foretelling exactly this if they helped a certain traveler. He declares they must stop escorting strangers and sacrifice bulls to appease Neptune, a sobering end to their legendary hospitality, showing the danger even in pious actions. #F vengeance and recognition in Ithaca, books 1424.
So Ulysses is finally back on Ithaca, but he wakes up alone, doesn't even recognize his homeland at first. Minerva has shrouded it in mist.
Minerva appears to him, initially disguised as a shepherd, then reveals herself. She confirms he's home, but warns him about the suitors. She advises him not to reveal himself yet.
And she transforms him, gives him the disguise of a wretched old beggar, wrinkled skin, ragged clothes, staff, perfect for infiltrating his own palace unrecognized.
His first move, guided by Minerva, is to go inland, not to the palace, but to the hut of his loyal swineherd, Eumaeus. This begins Book 14.
Eumaeus represents the bedrock of loyalty, the old ways still holding firm despite the chaos at the palace. He welcomes the beggar with incredible kindness and hospitality, true Xenia, even though he thinks Ulysses is long dead.
Ulysses stays with Eumaeus, testing his loyalty, listening to his laments about his lost master and the wicked suitors. Ulysses tells Eumaeus a very detailed, convincing false story about being a warrior from Crete who supposedly knew Ulysses.
He even tells Eumaeus that Ulysses is alive and will return soon. But Eumaeus, hardened by disappointment, dismisses it as just another beggar's tale, trying to win favor.
Meanwhile, in Book 15, Minerva goes to Sparta to hurry Telemachus home. She warns him about the suitors' ambush plot and tells him to go directly to Eumaeus's hut upon landing, not the palace.
Telemachus follows her instructions, lands safely, avoids the ambush, and arrives at the swineherd's hut.
And there, the first reunion happens. Eumaeus welcomes Telemachus warmly. Then Minerva appears, visible only to Ulysses, and tells him it's time. She restores Ulysses to his true appearance, briefly.
Telemachus is stunned, thinks he's seeing a god. But Ulysses convinces him, "I am your father."
The embrace, the tears. It's the first emotional payoff after 20 years. They immediately begin plotting the suitors' downfall, agreeing to keep Ulysses' return secret for now. Only they, Eumaeus, and maybe one other loyal servant, Phloetus the cowherd, will be in on the plan.
So Ulysses returns to his beggar disguise. In books 17 through 20, he enters his own city and palace, and the abuse begins.
He's first insulted by the disloyal goatherd, Melanthius, who kicks him. Then, inside the palace, he has to witness the suitor's arrogance and waste firsthand.
His old hunting dog, Argus, lying neglected on a dung heap, recognizes him instantly, thumps his tail, and then dies. An incredibly poignant moment of loyalty unto death.
The suitors mostly mock the beggar or ignore him. But the lead suitor, Antinous, is particularly cruel. He insults Ulysses and then throws a footstool at him, hitting him on the shoulder.
And Ulysses' reaction.
He just stands there and takes it, endures it like a rock, the text says. This endurance, this lanai, is his new form of heroism, controlling his rage, waiting for the right moment. It's the opposite of Achilles' immediate fury.
He even gets into a fight with the resident palace beggar, Eris, who sees him as competition. Ulysses, trying not to reveal his full strength, floors Eris with a single calculated punch, earns him some grudging respect, or at least fear.
Penelope, hearing about the strange, resilient beggar, decides to question him herself in Book 19, still unaware it's Ulysses.
This is a tense, brilliant scene. Ulysses spins another version of his Cretan tale, claiming he hosted Ulysses in Crete years ago. He describes Ulysses' appearance and clothing in such detail that Penelope weeps, convinced the beggar speaks truth.
He assures her Ulysses is alive and on his way home. She offers him hospitality, a bath, a bed. She instructs Ulysses' old nurse, Euryclea, to wash the beggar's feet, a customary act of hospitality.
And this leads to the crucial recognition scene. As Euryclea washes his feet, her hands brush across a distinctive scar on his thigh.
A scar he received as a boy, hunting a wild boar on Mount Parnassus with his maternal grandfather, Autolycus. And Autolycus was famous, the text notes, as the most accomplished thief and perjurer in the whole world.
That detail about Autolycus subtly reinforces Ulysses' own heritage of cunning and deception.
Exactly. Euryclea instantly recognizes the scar. She drops his foot in shock, spilling the water. She looks up, overjoyed, about to cry out his name.
But Ulysses quickly grabs her throat, silences her, warns her with threats not to reveal his identity yet, not even to Penelope. The plan depends on secrecy. Euryclea swears an oath to keep silent.
Penelope, meanwhile, perhaps sensing something or perhaps inspired by Athena, announces her decision to the suitors. She will finally choose a husband. She sets up a contest for the next day, Book 21.
The legendary contest of the bow.
First, they have to string Ulysses' great bow, a massive, powerful weapon that only he could string easily. Then, the successful suitor must shoot an arrow straight through the handle holes of 12 axes lined up in a row.
The suitors are excited, confident. But one by one, they try and fail even to string the bow. Their muscles, softened by years of feasting and idleness, aren't strong enough. Even the best among them, like Eurymachus, can't do it.
Leodes, a seer among the suitors, tries and fails, prophesying doom for them all. Antinous suggests they postpone, make sacrifices to Apollo first.
But then the beggar Ulysses humbly asks for a chance to try the bow, just to see if he still has his old strength.
The suitors mock him furiously. Antinous threatens him. But Penelope insists the beggar be given a chance, shaming them for fearing an old man. Telemachus, asserting his authority, orders Eumaeus to give the bow to the beggar.
Ulysses takes the bow. He handles it expertly, checks it over. The suitors watch, uneasy now. He lifts it, and with no apparent effort strings it as easily as a musician strings a lyre.
A thunderclap from Zeus echoes overhead, a divine sign of approval. Ulysses then picks up an arrow, takes aim, and shoots it perfectly, straight through all 12 axe heads.
The hall falls silent. The game is up. Ulysses throws off his rags.
And he speaks to Telemachus. Your guest has not disgraced you. Then he nods towards Antinous, who is just lifting a cup to drink.
The slaughter begins. Book 22. Ulysses shoots Antinous through the throat with his very next arrow. He falls dead, wine cup scattering.
The suitors are in shock, then panic. They realize who he is, that they're trapped. Telemachus had removed all the weapons from the hall earlier. Eurymachus tries to plead, blames Antinous, offers restitution.
Ulysses refuses. No payment can wipe out your crimes. Vengeance is the only answer now.
What follows is a brutal, systematic massacre. Ulysses, Telemachus, and the two loyal herdsmen, Eumaeus and Philoetius, armed now, fight against the vastly outnumbered suitors.
Minerva joins the fight, first disguised as Mentor, an old family friend, encouraging Ulysses. Later, she transforms into a swallow, perching high on the roof beams, terrifying the suitors with her divine presence, deflecting their spears.
They kill every single suitor. The hall runs with blood. Only the bard Phemius and the herald Medon, who were forced to serve the suitors and were relatively blameless, are spared at Telemachus's request.
But the vengeance isn't over. Ulysses calls out the disloyal housemaids, about a dozen of them, who slept with the suitors and scorned Penelope and Telemachus.
He makes them clean up the horrific mess in the hall, carry out the bodies, and then, on Telemachus's grim suggestion, instead of giving them a quick death by the sword, they are hanged together from a ship's cable in the courtyard, a degrading, final punishment for their betrayal.
The palace is finally cleansed of corruption, physically purified with burning sulfur. Order is restored through violence.
Now comes the personal restoration. Euryclea rushes upstairs to wake Penelope, tell her Ulysses is back, he's killed the suitors. Book 23.
But Penelope is cautious, disbelieving. After 20 years of false hopes and deceptive strangers, she suspects it might be a trick, or maybe a god has done this. She comes downstairs, but keeps her distance from Ulysses, observing him coolly.
Telemachus scolds her for her coldness, but Ulysses understands. He tells Telemachus to let her test him in her own way. He knows she needs absolute proof.
And Penelope devises the final, ultimate test. She pretends to order Euryclea to move their marriage bed out of the master bedroom so the stranger can sleep on it.
And this triggers Ulysses. He reacts with shock and anger. Who moved my bed? It's impossible.
Why? Because, as he describes in detail, he built that bed himself years ago. He built the entire bedroom around a massive living olive tree that grew in the courtyard. He shaped the trunk into a bedpost. The bed is literally rooted to the earth, immovable.
It's a secret only he and Penelope and one trusted maid now dead could possibly know. It's the unshakable symbol of their marriage.
Penelope hears him describe their bed, and her reserve finally breaks. She knows it's truly him. She runs to him weeping, embracing him, apologizing for her caution. The reunion is complete, long delayed, but finally achieved.
They spend the night recounting their separate sufferings and triumphs. The emotional core of the epic is resolved.
But there's still unfinished business in Book 24. First, Mercury leads the ghosts of the slain suitors down to Hades.
And there's a fascinating scene where the ghosts meet Agamemnon and Achilles. Agamemnon hears the story of the suitors' demise and Penelope's faithfulness, and he contrasts her virtue starkly with his own treacherous wife, Clytemnestra. He praises Penelope's Kleos, her enduring fame.
Meanwhile, back in Ithaca, Ulysses goes to find his father Laertes, who has been living in grief and squalor on his country farm.
Ulysses initially tests his father, too, pretending to be a stranger looking for Ulysses. But seeing his father's overwhelming grief, Ulysses reveals himself, using the scar again as proof, and also recalling specific details of the fruit trees they planted together in the vineyard when Ulysses was a boy.
Another tearful reunion. Father, son, and grandson are finally reunited.
But one final threat remains. The families of the dead suitors learn of the slaughter. Led by Eupeithes, Antinous' father, they arm themselves and march on Ulysses' farm, seeking revenge. Civil war threatens to break out.
Ulysses, Telemachus, and Laertes, along with their loyal helpers, prepare to fight them. Laertes, rejuvenated, even kills Eupeithes with a spear throw.
But just as a full-scale battle is about to erupt, Minerva intervenes one last time. Disguised as mentor again, but speaking with her divine voice, she commands both sides to stop fighting, to make peace.
She imposes a covenant of peace, magically making the attackers forget in their anger and flee. Zeus adds a confirming thunderbolt. Order is finally fully restored to Ithaca, not just domestically, but politically and socially too. The Gnosis is complete.
So looking back at both epics, these sources really highlight the difference, don't they? The Iliad is steeped in rage, the pursuit of honor, Timma, and ultimately accepting a short, glorious life defined by Kleos. That's Achilles' path.
Yeah, whereas the Odyssey is all about cunning, metis, incredible endurance, tlenē, and that long, arduous journey towards homecoming, gnostis, and restoration. That's Ulysses' story. Two very different models of heroism.
And yet both epics find their deepest emotional resonance in familial loyalty, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Achilles' earth-shattering rage is ultimately triggered by his intense love for Patroclus. And Ulysses' entire motivation, the driving force behind his 10 years of struggle, is his unwavering commitment to get back to Penelope, Telemachus, and his father Laertes. That loyalty fuels his endurance and even the brutality of his final vengeance.
And we can't ignore how absolutely central the gods are in both stories. Their interventions drive the plot at almost every turn.
From Agamemnon getting that false dream from Zeus, or Juno seducing Zeus to give the Achaeans a break,
To Minerva constantly guiding Ulysses, literally step by step sometimes, and Neptune acting as his primary antagonist. The gods aren't just watching, they're active participants, often the source of the conflicts themselves.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, our listeners, to chew on. In this world, Homer depicts where fate seems preordained, where the gods constantly meddle and manipulate events, Zeus tipping the scales of war, Athena guiding spears, Neptune wrecking ships. How much genuine free will do these legendary heroes actually possess?
Right. If Achilles knows he's fated to die young if he fights, or if Ulysses is constantly being helped or hindered by deities, what makes their choices still feel so significant, so heroic? Why do we still admire Achilles for choosing vengeance, knowing the cost, or Ulysses for clinging to his identity and his goal of home against all odds, even turning down immortality from Calypso for the sake of his mortal marriage bed? Where does their heroism truly lie in a world seemingly governed by fate and divine caprice?